Hello, my name is Lucas. This is A Bit of Lit, and I am here to walk around, give you a strange background that keeps moving. I am here to talk on day 24 of Vlogmas about Dubious Battle by John Steinbeck, which is part of a not really a trilogy, but kind of a trilogy in terms of its themes. The other two being Of Mice and Men and The Grapes of Wrath. I am, of course, talking about In Dubious Battle, where we have some communists that go to apple orchards to rabble-rouse a little bit and start a strike for fair wages for the workers, because the capitalists in charge of these farms want to undercut them as much as they can and pay as little as possible to maximize their own profits, not caring about these families that need these jobs. And in many ways, this book feels kind of slow because you're expecting something dramatic from these people that are starting a strike. And there are dramatic moments, no doubt about it. One character, Sam, an old man, falls out of a tree because his ladder is wobbly and shaky, provided by the farm owners. And it gets the strike going, gets them all organized with each other. And we've got to follow Jim and Mac, who are the people that are part of this group that are working together. They get funds from people all around, and they go to Torgus Valley by train to work as a couple of stiffs. They've got connections of their own. They get some food from this guy named Albert, who's sympathetic to the cause, whose father is also a farmer, but he's a small-time farmer. And that's going to be important because once these workers find themselves sort of out of job because they're striking for better wages, and then they will go right back to work because they want to work. They want to earn their keep, so to speak. But they don't want to be treated like dogs, okay? That don't deserve fair wages, because they do. And what I like about this book is that Mac, who is sort of a seasoned vet in this business of starting strikes, in some ways he's a bit jaded about how well it's going to work, but he's also very optimistic that eventually all the work, maybe this strike isn't going to work and the next one's not going to work, but it's going to spark some embers, right? And the embers are going to grow into small flames, and then it's going to be a big fire, and then happy day. But he's teaching Jim, whose father was also a labor organizer. And Jim is sort of the, I want to say, thematic center or moral center, because we see his ideology change. He goes from learning the ropes from Mac to eventually trying to take control and being really overly serious. And we see them both, Mac and Jim, find ways to take advantage of situations to motivate the people that they're trying to help start the strike with. And even if that means using somebody as a martyr, Sam as an example, this man named Joy, who is another rabble-rouser, he is shot down at this big tense face-off that happens in the city, because all the capitalists are working, the well-off owners that own the big farms are working against these workers. And it comes to a tense moment in the city near the tracks where some new working stiffs come in. Scabs, I believe is what they're called. And Joy comes out and causes a big commotion, and he gets shot, and then the police are terrified. They've deputized lots of people. You see, the capitalists, they had a lot of power because of their money, because of their wealth, because of their position. They have connections with the banks and the politicians and the law enforcement, and indirectly through the military, because they can have the politicians bring in the National Guard, and they've also got the judges and the newspapers. And so in this way, they have all the power in the world to turn even public opinion against these strikers, but they can't go too hard because they will sort of lose face, even with the public that they're trying to manipulate with the word of mouth and newspapers of this time in this book. Now, once the people go on strike, they go to this small farm to camp out, and they have a doctor, and he has a lot of really interesting discussions about what it's all for, with Mac, and why he's there if he doesn't really believe in the cause. And yeah, it's really interesting. I like the doctor quite a bit, and I love Mac. He says he is my favorite character in the book, I think, just because of how sort of not blustering, but he can put on a big show and knows how to work with people and communicate with them in a way that will get them to help themselves. He helps deliver a child early on, even though he's not a doctor, but he manages to tell people exactly what they need to do in a way that they want to work and help themselves and help this child be born to be healthy and have no problems. He has no idea what he's doing. He just has an idea. I think I need some warm water, some warm cloths, and do this. Oh, you need to go, not you need to go do that, but just, you guys do this, you guys do that, you help me, blah, 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 blah. But he can also be incredibly cold, as we see when he tries to use people such as Joy, who dies for the cause, as a martyr for the cause. And we see with Jim, of course, by the end, things start falling apart. They would start running out of food and ways to get food. The capitalists with the most money are trying to... they beat up Albert, who had the lunch truck business thing that they got some free food earlier from. They burned down the farm, or not the farm, the barn where all of the small farmers' apples were put, because the workers did that for free. They picked all the apples for free so that they could stay there. I suppose it's a trade-off, not really for free. And they burned that down, and they caused a lot of ruckus, and they have some young kids do that for them and do anything they can to discredit them and to disband them. And they just do everything they can. Ultimately, they're after the two leaders, Mac and Jim, who are not the elected leaders, because Mac knows that the men, if they're going to work with each other and see this thing through, they need an elected leader, who they have Dakin and London. And Dakin sort of goes crazy and loses his mind for a moment because somebody attacks his truck, which was very precious to him. And then they have London, who wants to be part of this cause, very much so. And it's just amazing, because that, like I said before, Jim, his father was a labor organizer, and he's learning the ropes from Mac. And by the end of the book, he really starts to take control and come into himself. And he does sort of apologize, something came over me. But by the end, I don't feel like I'm spoiling anything because it's almost 90 years old. The doctor has disappeared, and they need the doctor so that the government around, the local government, won't shut him down for sanitary reasons. So they even have the health board against them. They have everything against these strikers looking for decent wages. And somebody comes up, and they even send people in to start to discredit the London and Mac and these other people throughout the latter end of the book. Just relentless. But they have this guy come up and say, "Oh yeah, I found the doctor. Who's been missing for 2 days? Or a day. He was found over here. Come follow me." And they go to try and find him, but it turns out it's a trap, and they shoot at Mac and what am I trying to say? At Mac and Jim. Mac survives, but Jim's face has been blown off and he's dead. And, you know, when Joy died, a great speech was given by Mac. He didn't want anything for himself. And, you know, we see the same thing happen. Mac gives the same exact speech. It is truly a battle that is never ending, in a way. Comrades, he didn't want nothing for himself, right, is what he says. He says that at the beginning of Joy's eulogy, and he says it from Mac's eulogy. And it's interesting for me that Jim's face is missing, because it's like, well, his face would be red, right, because of the blood. He's given his identity up, everything about himself up for this political ideology, which has taken everything from him. But it's not really him that did it. It's the other side, of course. But he's given everything he can, quite literally. Now he's going to be a martyr. He's lost his identity to this identity politics kind of thing, in the hopes for a Torgus Valley that pays their workers better, their farm hands better. And I think there's a lot to be said there. I think it's an incredible book. Hardly relatable to 2020 by any means. I don't see any connection. Certainly there are actually not really strikes of this nature anymore, but nothing else could possibly be found in this book that could be relatable, where some people are protesting about injustices and unfair things, and everything surrounding them is against them. Can't possibly happen, not in this year. There's so much more to say, and I wish I could have made that video, but that's that. Thank you for watching. Please watch it. That means you, Mr. Nothing.